The soft hum of the washing machine filled the silence of the house, blending with the distant sound of traffic outside. Emily Carter folded laundry with a mechanical rhythm, her hands moving while her mind drifted far from the basket of clothes in front of her. The scent of fabric softener lingered in the air, clean, comforting, predictable, just like her life had become. She glanced at the time. 7:14 p.m. Daniel was late again. Her husband's absences no longer surprised her. Work meetings, late-night emails, business trips. Reasons that once made her proud of his ambition now felt like walls being built between them. 8 years of marriage had dulled the spark into something more like habit. They rarely fought, but that made it worse. The quiet between them was heavy, like something neither wanted to disturb. Emily was 32, still youthful in appearance but worn inside. She missed being seen, not just looked at but truly noticed. These days, Daniel barely made eye contact over dinner. He was present in body, absent in every other way. She sighed and turned away from the clock, her eyes catching her reflection in the hallway mirror. Her hair was pinned up messily, no makeup, just a worn t-shirt and leggings. She barely recognized the woman staring back. She hadn't planned to go back to the gym. It had been an impulsive decision last month. Part escape, part desperation. She told Daniel it was about health. In truth, it was the first thing she had done for herself in years. That's where she met him. Liam Brooks was one of the trainers, late 20s, fit, confident, the kind of man who made heads turn. When he introduced himself on her second visit, it was just polite conversation. But over the weeks, something shifted. He remembered her name, smiled longer, noticed things, like when she changed her hairstyle or wore a different scent. Things Daniel never mentioned anymore. At first, she told herself it meant nothing. She was married. He was just friendly. But one afternoon, as she struggled with a new workout, he stood behind her, gently guiding her posture with a firm hand on her waist. His touch lingered just a second too long. That second rewrote everything. Emily hadn't said a word then. But when she went home that evening, her skin still tingled where he'd touched her. And for the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. She found herself dressing more carefully before going to the gym. Little mascara, a spritz of perfume, subtle but intentional. She hated how much it mattered. Hated how excited she felt when she saw him walking across the floor toward her. She wasn't stupid. She knew the difference between flirtation and sincerity. But she also knew how loneliness could blur lines. That morning, Liam had said something different. As she finished her session, sweating and breathless, he smiled and leaned in. "You've got this glow lately, Emily. Looks good on you." His voice was low, close, and smooth like honey. She had laughed, nervous. "Maybe it's just the sweat." He tilted his head. "No, it's something else." Emily left the gym with her heart pounding. Confused, flattered, terrified. Back home, the silence greeted her like an old friend. She made dinner. Alone. Daniel hadn't even texted to say he'd be late. Now she stood in the kitchen, staring at a pot of untouched food. Her phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. "Liam, next time maybe we should grab coffee after. You up for that?" She held the phone for a long moment, the message burning into her thoughts. Her thumb hovered over the screen. A whisper inside her stirred, soft but growing louder. "What if you just said yes? Just once?" She swallowed hard and locked the phone without replying. Her breath trembled. This wasn't her. She was a wife. She had made vows. She had a home, a life. Yet deep down, a truth she didn't want to admit curled itself around her heart. She missed being wanted. She walked slowly down the hallway, her footsteps quiet against the wooden floor. In the mirror she caught herself again, and this time she held her gaze. Something in her eyes had changed. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe the thrill. Or maybe it was just the need to feel alive again. Either way, the thought was already there. The idea. And once it's in, it doesn't leave. "I took a risk," she whispered to herself. "I thought I could do something I've never done before." Rain tapped gently against the windshield as Emily sat motionless in her car, parked 2 blocks away from the hotel. Her hands clutched the steering wheel, knuckles white, pulse racing. The heater blew warm air onto her face, but inside she felt cold. Not the kind of cold that begged for a sweater, but the kind that lived in the bones. She read the message again. Liam. Room 304. No pressure. I'll be there. It had arrived 20 minutes ago. She hadn't replied, yet here she was. Her thumb hovered over the ignition key, every voice in her head screaming a different truth. Leave now. You're not that woman. He's waiting. Just one time. Doesn't mean anything. But it did mean something. She couldn't pretend it didn't. Emily had spent the day convincing herself this was harmless. Just coffee. Just closure. But the moment she turned off the freeway, she knew she had crossed a line. There was no excuse now. Only choice. With a shaky breath, she opened the door. The rain hit her softly, cool and cleansing. She moved through the lobby like a stranger in her own skin. Numb, floating, invisible. The receptionist barely looked up as she stepped into the elevator. Her reflection in the polished doors showed a woman she almost didn't recognize. Hair down, lips tinted rose, wearing the one black blouse Daniel used to compliment her on. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she pressed the button for the 3rd floor. The elevator doors closed, trapping her in a silence that screamed. The hallway stretched on like a tunnel, narrow and dim. Room 304 was at the end. She knocked once, softly. The door opened almost immediately. Liam stood there, his expression unreadable, calm, yet charged with something she couldn't name. "Hey," he said simply. She stepped inside. The room smelled like citrus and linen. Dim lighting. A single chair by the window. A king-sized bed untouched. "Thanks for coming," he added, voice low. She nodded, suddenly unsure of what to do with her arms. She crossed them, uncrossed them, sat on the chair. Liam poured water into a glass, handed it to her without asking. "So, why am I here?" she asked, her voice tighter than intended. He sat across from her, leaning forward. "Because you wanted to be. Just like I wanted you to be." She stared at the floor. Her mind flashed with images. Daniel at his desk, eyes on a spreadsheet. Liam's fingers on her hip at the gym. Her own restless nights filled with silent longing. "This isn't who I am," she said, half to him, half to herself. "Maybe not," Liam said. "Or maybe it's a part of you you've never given permission to exist." The air between them thickened. He wasn't pushing her. But he wasn't pulling away either. Silence settled. Then he stood, walked over, and knelt beside her. His fingers touched hers, slow and careful, as if asking a question with no words. "You can leave," he said softly. "Right now. I won't stop you." Emily looked at his hand, then into his eyes. There was no judgment there. No manipulation. Just waiting. And then something in her snapped. Something that had been held tight for years. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, uncertain. But it grew. The kiss deepened, and with it came heat, desperation, release. They moved in rhythm like two people chasing something they couldn't name but desperately needed to feel. Her blouse slipped off. His shirt joined it. The bed creaked beneath the weight of their choices. She had expected shame. But in that moment there was only fire. A fire that burned through guilt, through silence, through years of feeling unwanted. Later she lay on the bed, the sheets tangled around her. Liam slept beside her, his breathing slow and deep. The rain outside had stopped. Emily stared at the ceiling. It was done. The thing she swore she'd never do. The line she thought she'd never cross. And yet she didn't feel destroyed. She didn't feel heroic either. She felt changed. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Daniel. "Daniel. Working late again. Don't wait up." She closed her eyes and turned away from the screen. The world outside this room still existed. But in here she had tasted something different. Something dangerous. Something that reminded her she was still alive. And that truth couldn't be undone. The house was quiet when Emily returned. The kind of quiet that followed you, crept under your skin, and sat with you like a shadow. She stepped inside and locked the door behind her, moving on autopilot. Keys in the bowl, shoes by the wall, purse on the table. Nothing out of place. Nothing that would betray the truth of where she'd been. The clock above the kitchen stove read 1:27 a.m. Daniel wasn't home. She should have felt relieved. Instead, the emptiness unnerved her. The weight of what she'd done hadn't hit her at the hotel. Not fully. But here, in the life she was supposed to be living, it came crashing in. Her fingertips still tingled with memory. The feel of Liam's skin, the way he'd said her name. Like it meant something. Like she meant something. But now it felt like something else. Not regret. Not yet. Just a fracture. Like she'd cracked open a version of herself she couldn't put back. She walked slowly through the hallway and into the bedroom. The bed was untouched. Daniel's side remained perfectly made, as if no one had laid in it all week. She stared at it for a long time, then sat on the edge, still wearing the same blouse she'd put on hours ago. Her phone buzzed again. She reached for it without thinking. Liam. You okay? She stared at the message. Her thumbs hovered over the screen. Then finally she typed, I don't know. She didn't press send. Instead, she powered off the phone and let it slip from her hands onto the bedspread. The next morning, Daniel returned just before 8. He looked exhausted. Creased shirt, dark circles beneath his eyes, and the scent of stale coffee clinging to him. Hey, he said, dropping his laptop bag onto the couch. Didn't want to wake you last night. She didn't answer right away. He moved into the kitchen, poured himself cereal like it was any other morning. Like their marriage hadn't just quietly changed. You forgot our anniversary, she said suddenly. Daniel froze, spoon in midair. His mouth opened, then closed again. I didn't forget. Things got crazy at work. Emily turned to face him. You didn't even text. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Emily, I'm trying here. I've been under pressure. I thought we were fine. Fine. The word stabbed deeper than she expected. She could have told him everything right then. She could have watched his face fall apart with the truth. She could have asked why he stopped touching her, stopped seeing her. But she didn't. She wasn't sure who to blame anymore, him or herself. Instead, she said, You didn't ask where I was last night. Daniel paused. His eyes met hers. For the first time in weeks, he really looked at her. Should I? He asked, voice quiet. Emily swallowed. There it was. The unspoken crack running through the middle of their marriage, visible now to both of them. I don't know, she replied. The day moved in strange waves. She cleaned the kitchen, watered the plants, folded laundry she didn't remember washing. Her body did one thing, while her mind kept drifting back. To Liam's hand brushing hers. His voice in the dark. The moment after, when silence fell between them like an ocean. She didn't contact him. He didn't message again. At the gym, she avoided his usual hours. Every time the doors opened, her breath hitched. But it was never him. Whatever they'd shared now lived in memory, not reality. And maybe that was for the best. That evening, she sat alone on the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The sky was pink, the air still. A world that kept spinning, even when hers had tilted. She thought about the woman she had been 2 weeks ago. Quiet, restless, unnoticed. And the woman she had become. Uncertain, flawed, burning with choices. She wasn't sure which one scared her more. Somewhere inside, she knew the story wasn't over. Not with Daniel. Not with Liam. Not with herself. She whispered into the dusk, like a confession carried on the wind. I took a risk. I thought I could do something I've never done before. And I did. Her eyes stung, but she didn't cry. The damage was done. But so was the awakening.